All right, men, welcome to Real Men, Real Issues. Oh, a little weak. Welcome to Real Men, Real Issues. Yeah, that's more like it. All right, how many of you men were at Meat Fest? Raise your hand. Oh, man, that was some good meat. You know, this year, man, we're going to have more meat. Oh, I can't wait. I'm getting hungry right now, and I just had Chick-fil-A. So man, I'm so glad that you're here. My name is Randy Stensgaard. I'm the pastor to men here at Plymouth Covenant Church, and my team and I have been putting this together, and we're just so excited. But tonight, we have my friend Carson Green. So Carson's been a good friend. He's on my men's leadership team, so come on up here, Carson. And it's just been great to do life with you. So welcome.
Thanks, buddy.
Let's welcome Carson.
Thank you. Glad to be here. It's amazing as Gene was talking. Hold on, I have props. As Gene was talking, I was just looking around and just seeing the guys at dinner, and it's amazing that how many people are here that I've been personally touched and been instrumental in my faith journey. And it's just I was overwhelmed by it. I need to say thank you. This group of guys may not ever be together again. That had such a huge part of my life. So thank you. You know who you are. It's just incredible to do life with other men, as Randy's talking about. And that's what we do. Right? We make each other stronger. There's so many people that I talked about that have kind of been that other steel as we've sharpened each other, or other piece of iron. And that's what we're going to do tonight. We're going to talk about chaos. I don't have to regurgitate all the stuff that's happened in the last year and that's going to happen and talk about that. We all know what's happened, and we're living in chaos, and we're gonna experience more chaos. And as men, we're often looked upon to be the leaders of our homes or the leaders of our workplaces, and we've all been in those times that we're surrounded by loved ones or coworkers or friends, and people are looking at us, provide us some leadership. And God sort of bestows that upon us and sometimes makes us that our responsibility, particularly in our homes. So we're going to focus on the leadership side of it as well. But I got to admit, so I'll lighten the mood a little bit. There's chaos in my home. I have 3 boys, 15, 10, and 7. And I'm constantly trying to defend my position as the alpha male. So, and if anybody can relate, I'm constantly trying to defend that. My 2 youngest ones are... Their way of trying to notch me down in my status of alpha in the wolf den is to try to scare me at any time, right? Jump out of corners, that's the whole thing. It's getting old. Every day is like that. My oldest, he's 15, he's a wrestler. His way is he can't give a normal hug anymore. It's always he's trying to get an underhook and trying to get my back, and it's just, and then we're wrestling, it's just mess. So it's getting old, but I realize I'm extremely blessed, so I'm not complaining at all. It's just funny. So we'll go ahead and get started here. Oh, I need to turn this on. Don't want to. Tech guy's gonna yell at me. Okay, first a disclaimer. Just a regular dude, not an astronaut, not a general, not a founding member of Delta Force, NFL player, professional football or baseball player. So just a regular guy. So if I say something stupid, it's just a regular guy, okay? The other thing is I'm from rural Texas, so you may have already figured that out. That's going to explain any word that you may perceive as made up, but it was probably taught to me in the sticks of East Texas. So just take that away. And then my accent, I used to try to hide it. It's too much work to do that. And it comes out even thicker if I get excited, and that's probably going to happen. So that's just the disclaimer. All right. So I want to first start with a little bit of a visualization. I like mental rehearsals, mental exercises. I want you to in a little bit, for a few seconds, just harken back to a time when you felt your life was in chaos. Now, I don't want to confuse anybody. Chaos doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing. If you've had 2 or 3 kids under the age of 2 or 3, that's chaos, right? It's a good chaos, but it is chaos. And you can experience the same sort of emotions as a crisis, say. But I want you to harken back to a time in your life. I want you to close your eyes and think about what some of the raw emotions you were feeling at the time, okay? Try to mentally take yourself back there. Try not to go any place dark. It's going to be really hard to come back from. It's going to distract you for the rest of the night. But just someplace that you found yourself. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be a month, time of your life where you felt like your life was thrown in chaos. Just take a few seconds. come back to me. This is the audience participation part. So just throw out those raw emotions. How are you feeling? Anger, frustration, confusion, fear, overwhelmed. Who said that? Anxiety, feeling weak, exhaustion. Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. We're all familiar with all of those, right? I really start with that edge of catastrophe. For me, it's so I'm walking on the south rim of the Grand Canyon. At any moment, man, it's just I'm gonna fall. And it's gonna be over. Overwhelmed, lonely, discouraged, sad, apathetic. I feel like as men, a desire to retreat, check out. I'm done with it, right? That sort of resonates with me as well. Shock. Okay, here's the next question. What's our natural response? When we encounter feelings, emotions like that, what's our natural response? How do we respond to that? And when I say natural, it's not a God-given natural, but as doubting, fearful human beings, that kind of natural. If we don't have any training, how do we respond? I'm gonna fight. Defense, check out, yeah. What questions do we ask? Why me? What's next? Good. I would submit that we kind of jump to how's this going to end? How am I going to get out of this? Right? When is this going to be over? We're already thinking about the end. I want this to go away. I need this to go away right now. Anybody have that feeling when you start seeing the news and the pandemic's rolling from west to east and then going from east to west and we're in the middle and it's coming right here towards us and then now it's mass, now it's this and that and the other and when is this going to end? Right? It becomes really overwhelming. So tonight we're going to talk about untrained response and a trained response. And I think you find, what I submit to the group is we find peace in chaos through training. We've got to be trained to encounter chaos. All right, and that's how we eventually find peace to even live amongst the chaos and be ready for the next one. So I think the untrained response to chaos is quite linear. We ask, we're hit with all these emotions, and then we ask, how am I going to get out of this situation? How's this going to end? I'm thinking about the end. Okay? And then there is a realization, a hill is too tough to climb. A mountain's too big. How am I going to get out? Whatever crisis or chaos that you're living through, this is too hard right now. Okay? And then when we convince ourselves mentally that it's too hard, we get into panic mode, all right? And 99% of the time, if we allow ourselves to panic, we're going to fail. And failure looks like all kinds of things. Failure can look like just apathy, just checking out. Family, I'm checking out. That's failure, right? We're not doing our roles as men. So we've all had some experience in the water. Many of us have. Maybe you're a good swimmer or not, whatever, it doesn't matter, but maybe you're in open water, river, lake, whatever. That's popular up here. Or you're in one of those wave pools and you're with your kids, and you've had that moment where like the bottom wasn't there, or you were expecting, or it was just you just took on a little bit too much, the current was a little too much, and you've had that moment of panic where you had that physiological response, if you know what I mean. Like, oh, and then you've caught yourself, okay? Well, you didn't. What happens? Your training as a swimmer either kicked in or somebody was there to grab you. Right? That's a whole other talk. But so your training kicked in. I can handle this. Bob and weave. Take a breath and calm down, and I can get through whatever I'm getting through in the water. Because you didn't panic, you're here today. Okay? Worst thing didn't happen. I want to tell you a little story of where I started to realize that I could control some of this feelings that I'm getting chaos, okay? So I told you I grew up in rural Texas. I don't know how it happened, but I ended up going to a military academy, West Point, in New York, and then all I wanted to do was to be in the Army at the time. I wanted to be in the Army and be an infantry officer. And really, what that meant for me was I just wanted to walk around the woods with a gun. That's it. That's all I wanted to do. That's what I did as a kid. You know, I shot squirrels. And to me, it was like, I just want to walk around the woods with a gun. That was what I wanted to do. So infantry was the whole thing. Had to be an infantry officer. And had no idea. This was pre-9/11. Actually, 9/11 happened my senior year at West Point. So I had no idea what I was getting into. So graduate by the grace of God only, and I ended up going to OBC, Fort Benning, Georgia. You spend like half your adult life at Fort Benning, Georgia, it seems like, as an infantry guy. And then everybody knows there's this huge looming mountain in front. It's called Ranger School. And every infantry officer is, it's not mandated to go, but highly encouraged, and meaning like your career is going to be over if you don't volunteer to go. And so, but Ranger School is a 60-day school. If you're lucky, if you go straight through, it can be as long as 120, 180 days. Many of you have seen, know a little bit about it. Any Ranger School graduates in the audience? Okay, because then this whole thing would just cement even if you know what I mean by some of these things. But it's a tough school. Only 50% graduate, and it's they only give you one MRE a day. You get a couple hours of sleep a night. It's a tough school. It's a leadership school, really, but it's all about small unit infantry tactics. And to say that there's an expectation to graduate, or there's pressure to graduate as an infantry officer, sort of underselling it. This is what happens when you first go to your first unit as a young platoon leader, young lieutenant. You're walking in my case, it was going to be with the 101st Airborne. Walk in, the first thing that happens is your boss's boss, the battalion commander, looks at your left shoulder. He doesn't say a word to you. It's still to this day. I can corroborate this. I have many friends that are still in. Still to this day, this happens. For right or wrong, unfair or fair, it doesn't matter. They look at your left shoulder, and that Ranger tab is there. They assume certain things about you. They assume good things, right or wrong. I know a lot of people that wore a tab, and but if it's not there, they assume all the negative things. Basically, it's a career ender, it seems, right? So I know a lot of people that have recovered. But they look at that tab, they look at that shoulder, and there's a determination made about you as a man right there in his office, okay? So that's the expectation. So I'm all ready. I've spent my entire life so far, 21 years old, 22, ready for Ranger School. I'm going to do it. I can max all these things, all these tests. The first day are a bunch of very objective tests. The PT test, water survival test, like an obstacle course. There's all these kind of things. There's not a lot of secrets, but they're hard. They make them hard for so many unnecessary reasons. So I show up at, it's a 0-300 start, and it's dark. And the first thing is the push-ups on a physical fitness test. I've maxed this so many times, it's easy, right? And not even thinking I'm thinking about the whole rest of the day. My mind's just not even thinking about the push-ups. So I get down, do the push-ups. They don't count, so it's a little bit of a mind thing going on there. They don't count for you. You just do as many as you can in 2 minutes. They tell you if you pass or fail. So I said, no way, I'm going to fail, right? Do the push-ups. Ranger instructor says, fail. Get in the back of the line. So now, for one of the first times in my life that I can remember, like these physiological things are happening to me where panic is starting to set in. Go back to the back of the line, come back in the front of the line, get 5 minutes to rest. So now I'm already self-defeated. My chest is on fire. Just did, how many push-ups. Come back, do them again, fail again. Fail 2 times in a row, you're out of the school, right? Oh, my goodness. My Army career just flashed before my eyes. It's over before I even started, right? The sun hadn't even come up in the morning at Ranger School, and I'm already out of the school. Like, that's not good. This is a great start to my career as a lieutenant and captain, maybe. So, go in this conference room, and and now it's about mid-morning or noon or so. Everybody's piled in there that have failed these events throughout the morning, and there's probably about 50 of us in there so far. And so, Sergeant Major of the senior enlisted guy of the entire Ranger Training Brigade comes in and says, "Okay, everybody on the bus, you're going back to Fort Benning, out process, you're off to your unit, you're going to fly out the next day. If you have a grievance, about how you were graded, let me know. Raise your hand." And so I raised my hand. So we see what happened that preceded that. I had a lot of time to think in the conference room, and all I could think about, it was this overwhelming sort of feeling, and now I'm more mature in my faith, and I realized it was a nudge from the Holy Spirit, and it said, just don't leave. Figure out a way to stay. Do those push-ups again. Don't leave. That's all I was going under. Don't leave. So when the Sergeant Major says, anybody have a grievance? I said, well, it's a few more minutes I can stay, So there's about 4 other dudes that said, yep, I have a grievance as well. Everybody else is on the buses. Get in line, we're going to go see the sergeant major and the colonel, the 06, in charge of the entire Ranger Training Brigade. And I'm a little second lieutenant. This guy is huge to me, you know. And so I'm last. The first guy goes in, airs his grievance. Nobody hears it. Comes out, gets on the bus. I'm like, oh, great. Yeah, that's a good start. Second guy, same thing. Third, fourth, they all are in there a couple of minutes each. Go get on the bus. I'm like, oh, man, I have no hope now. But all I could hear was, just don't leave. Go do that first step again. So I go in, and I say a bunch of cheesy things to the sergeant major and the colonel, and I say, sir, sergeant major, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. And here's my grievance. And I figured out I could probably work this. I had the same RI or same ranger instructor grade me twice on the push-ups. Same guy, so maybe that's something, right? I should have had maybe two different guys. I don't know. But then I told him, if that doesn't work, I'm still not leaving. I'm not going to leave. I need to go do those push-ups again. So they say, all right, Green, get out and stand in the conference room. I was like, oh, this is something different. I need to tell me to get on the bus. So I'm like, all right, maybe there's hope. And so Sergeant Major, now this, if you were in the Army, you'd know that how unusual this would be. Sergeant Major comes out and says, okay, hot shot, and there's no rank really at Ranger School. All right, hot shot, you want to do the push-ups? I'll grade you myself. And I'm like, okay. So we go out to this parade field right here, and the Sergeant Major grades me push-ups, one-on-one. Most intimidating thing I've probably ever done. Pass. I don't know how many push-ups I did, but I passed. Do the push-up, or the sit-ups is next. He holds my feet. There's nobody else. Pass. Run the 2 miles, do everything else. Pass. But now my mindset had changed. I wasn't thinking about the 60 days in front of me. I was like, I'm going to put every ounce of my effort into this one event right now, and then I'm going to go to the next event I did, just to get past the first day. Not defeating myself at the 60 days that are going to, succeed this, and maybe even 120 days, right? So it wasn't until midnight that I show up to my class that night. My West Point classmates were in there, and they were like, we can't believe it. Like, that's just whatever. How did that happen? I didn't believe how it happened. Anyway, I did, but I changed my mind frame from that day forward, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, like that. Ended up going straight through 60 days, and was able to get the tab and graduate and finally leave Fort Benning, Georgia, which was great. So here's what I learned, and that experience and others, here's what I learned, that we got to have a battle plan when encountering chaos or something hard in our life, okay? If we're just reacting at the moment, then we're going to forget to do this thing, forget to approach it in the way that we should, in the way that God has instructed us to do, and we'll get into that in a minute. And here's the first step, and this is what I was forced to do. I had to stop, look, and listen. It's in the Ranger Handbook. They instruct, when you're leading a Ranger or infantry patrol through the woods, whether you're trying to link up with friendly forces or you're expecting a contact with an enemy force, every once in a while you stop, look, and listen, right? Stop, look, and listen. And the whole point is to try to prepare yourself for what's next. And you can stop people, stop making noise, look around, look. Maybe there's an obvious sign that you should pay attention to and listen. Okay, I think we should do that too on a day-to-day basis. In this case, they'll stop, look for signs of God working in our lives, right? We need to pay attention. If we can just start on our battle plan and how to encounter chaos, look for what God's doing in our lives, listen to those nudges in the Holy Spirit, listen to that guidance, and making that part of a routine, remembering to breathe. Sure, I had to shorten my perspective, had to make a small goal. See, a lot of us grew up where you had these huge goals, okay? And still my kids, they have these, my son right now is working with a guide with goal making, goal setting, and there were these long term, and the shortest term goal is a 1-year goal. So it's going with 1, 3, 5, 10 goals, right? And so we have this, that I think it's a trap. I mean, those are all good, but it's a trap for a lot of us because we automatically think in this long term, and sometimes it's tough, or at least for me, to think short term. What do I need to do for tomorrow? What do I need to do just to get past today or get to tonight? Okay, so I had to shorten my perspective. I had to stay positive during that time and realize and stay confident that God's in control. God's right here. He's with me. He's in control all the way through. And I had to get that small win. Winning breeds confidence. Confidence breeds more winning. And it's cyclical like that. And I had to realize that if I could make that a routine, as soon as I get that first small win, stop, look, and listen again. Make a small goal. Remember to stay positive. We've all been in a time in a room where you're talking to 3 or 4 of your buddies, and it's sort of raucous, joyous conversation, and then a fourth guy comes in, and he's just having a bad day, and he just sucks the air out of the room, right? We've all been there. And you're like, oh, okay, thank you for that. That was fun until you walked in. But we can do the same thing to ourselves, right? With beating ourselves down with a negative attitude, not realizing that God's in control of what we're doing and he's walking with us, and having those self-doubts, we can create that negative attitude and it just makes it harder to get that small win. Here's another way of looking at it. Cyclical. Stop, look, and listen, and make a small goal. Stay positive. Get a small win. This is all, I'm just a regular dude. This is all just from experience in my little life. But I think there's something to this. But it's the training piece and is the next piece to do this, okay? So, so many times, you've had this experience where you think you figured something out, and then you're reading scripture, and you're like, oh, man, God's told us this, right? Like, he's taught us this. Now I'm seeing the scripture in such a whole different way, and I've had that realization about this same thing. I want to share that with you. I want to take you all the way back to, me just being a regular dude. Just also, I'm certainly not a pastor, so bear with me. But, so harken back to Exodus, and Moses is called to Egypt to free the Israelites from Pharaoh's rule, and it's just to read through there, and Dan did this amazing sort of depiction of what that must have been like in the wilderness and the chaos that must have been part of their day-to-day life. But even preceding their getting to the desert, the Israelites were able to witness this incredible miracle with Moses splitting the Red Sea, and how the hand of God through Moses was able to do that and free them forever after Pharaoh, of course, changed his mind. And it's surprising to read and to think, and you read commentaries and things. It was only about 30, 45 days before the grumbling started. Right? Like you witnessed that. But it didn't take long for the doubts to start coming in. And that's no different than us, right? No difference. And you can see it sort of play out again linearly. Like, when is this going to end? It's too hard. Like, the food's running out, the water's running out, right? And then I would call this panic when it says, the Israelites said to them, Aaron and Moses, that is, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt. There we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you have brought us out into this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. If you'd rather leave freedom, go back to slavery for some food, that's probably panic. A panic has set in at that time, right? So if God didn't let them fail, how did he intervene? It goes on. The Lord said to Moses, I'll rain down bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day, gather enough for that day. Down later, verse 14, this is in chapter 16. When the dew was gone, thin flakes like frost on the ground appeared on the desert floor. When the Israelites saw it, they said to each other, what is it? For they did not know what it was. Moses says to them, it is the bread the Lord has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Each one is to gather as much as he needs for that day. Take an omer for each person you have in your tent. He goes on to explain, take what you need today. Okay, don't save up for tomorrow or the next day. The Israelites being the Israelites and us being us. Not everybody paid attention to that, right? And those that saved up for the second, third, fourth day ended up spoiling the next morning. It was about instructions, God teaching them to instruct and obey, or to obey his instructions. But also, I think, about understanding, I'm going to give you, there's going to be times in our lives, I'm going to give you what you need for this day only, okay? You're going to worry about the next day and the next week and the next month, and I'm going to tell you, you don't need to worry. You just worry about today. I will give you what you need this day. And for the Israelites, it was manna, but for us, it's all kinds of things, right? Strength, peace, confidence, all kinds of things that we might need for this day while we're fighting or going through chaos. And I love this And he goes on to describe the manna, and I think there's some conflicting. I'm married to a seminary student, so there's conflicting descriptions about what the manna was. But here, this is what I think it was, and I've always wanted to do this because I see Dan do it every now and then. So here's how I think it was. So the verse says, the people of Israel called the bread manna. It was white like coriander seed and tasted like wafers made with honey. And if anybody of you backpack, you know these things are like little gems. You pull out one of these after like mile 5, it's amazing. So here we go. All right, so I've always wanted to do this because I see Dan doing it. Desserts, anybody? Oh, watch out, you got to pay attention. All right. Let's see how many more I have in here. So you're never going to look at these Stinger waffles again the same. Oh, if I can reach Dan back there. Nope. All right, here we go. All right, awesome. That was just for me. Okay. So again, isn't that incredible? In the Old Testament, God's just instructing us, hey, I may only give you what you need for today. If we fast forward, and many of you are probably thinking along these same lines, Jesus' Sermon on the Mount, same theme, right? Look at the birds of the air, as in Matthew 6. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Who of you, by worrying past today, tomorrow, next day, can add a single hour to his life? Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. That's the mentality, and that's the way to get trained to encounter chaos in our future. I want to tell you one more story about my own sort of little struggle in the desert. So Baghdad, Iraq in 2006, I think is probably a good example of chaos. The first thing, most significant thing are IEDs, improvised explosive devices. I guess before I talk about this, I served my first tour in Iraq, 2003 to 04, about a year as a platoon leader, recon platoon leader, 101st, came back, promoted, all that, school, back Fort Hood, Texas, infantry, you got to go light mechanic or mech infantry. Now I'm at Fort Hood, Texas, 4th Infantry Division, and then got assigned to a unit that was deploying to Iraq, 2006, 0506. So IEDs, improvised explosive devices, roadside bombs everywhere. It was a huge part of the battlefield. Every time you left a secure area, it was like you're driving through a minefield. It really was. And we were losing soldiers left and right, and in horrific ways. Just like nobody should have to suffer in that way, I don't think. But it's a big part of what we're dealing with. Enemy with momentum. This is pre-surge. If you remember, this is pre-Petraeus surge. So this is 06. The enemy had the momentum. They were really, really using some incredible tactics and had an understanding of kind of what we were doing, kind of. And really the hardest thing was a deteriorating understanding of our mission. So as leaders, getting tough questions like, what are we doing here? Why are we here? Why are we staying a year? What is our day-to-day mission? We're just kind of doing sometimes presence patrols or just walking around waiting to get blown up, waiting to get in contact. So there's a lot of that going on. Sectarian violence, so this is Sunni Shia Muslims, and without sort of that power in place or that authority in place, and it just made way for a lot of vacuum as sort of a way for a lot of sectarian violence. So, and of course, that battle goes back to 700 AD, but not going to get solved anytime soon, I wouldn't think. But what was horrific for us to see is that it would not be unusual to walk outside of the wire and see 10 bodies on the side of the road, all Shia or all Sunni. They had set up a checkpoint in the middle of the night and just killed everybody that they could identify as the opposite sect. So you had all that going on, a sort of emerging civil war, and it was hot, right? So all of this is amounted to this was chaos in a lot of ways. I was assigned to that infantry, or that 14th Infantry Division, 710 Cav. I was an infantry guy in a cavalry squad, which is a little weird. It turned out to be okay, I guess. But I was what it goes in the Army is when you're waiting for command, and command is 100 guys, say it's 100 guys, company command, and as you're waiting for that, you're a staff officer, and so I was a battalion staff officer, and the staffs have, a bunch of officers to help run the battalion, run the brigade and division. They all have staffs. And so what happens is, as a staff officer, you're sort of in the queue to become a commander if you are chosen. And it's all sort of based on seniority. So I was 25 years old and brand new to the squadron, and I was like the third or fourth guy like that, people older than me. So I had no idea. I was just going to run this out with on battalion staff, and we'll see where my Army career went after that. So we got there in, I think it was January, late December, January. And in April, so there was this, we had, so the squadron had several, had 4 company commanders, one of which was a guy named Ian Weichel. Incredible man. He was a mentor to me in a lot of ways. He was a little older than I was. West Point guy as well, but just an incredible guy, incredible leader. Like, he was absolutely revered by his soldiers. Everybody loved him. Just put it this way. So I have 32 companies in the brigade. The brigade is 5,000 people, and they're broken up into 32 companies and a bunch of other support stuff. He was ranked number 1 company commander of in the entire brigade. So he was just, people were just like, man, this guy's amazing. Huge career in front of him. Above all that, fervent, faithful follower of Jesus Christ. And people knew it by just watching him. And that was amazing. He walked it, and people knew it. And he was able to live his life in that way, but also be an effective Army officer. And not a lot of people in the Army have kind of been able to do that balance, in my opinion. So April 18, 2006, Ian's leading his troop through, doing the thing we did in Iraq, and he was targeted and killed, assassinated by Al-Qaeda elements, Taji, northern Baghdad, Iraq. And it just really, really was tough on the entire squadron. He died of his wounds. Balad, so April 18th, he's hit in the afternoon, flown to Balad Air Base, died of his wounds. This is him here. Incredible guy. This is actually the deployment of his before that. That's, if you guys remember Saddam Hussein, that was the hole that he was found in. Ian was there for that. That was 03, 04. That's him with his young son at the time, who was only a few months old when his dad died. So we find out he's deceased, and the officers who really adored him kind of all end up going our own separate ways. And about 1 o'clock in the morning, I get a knock at my door, and it's the Colonel Thompson's driver, and our squadron commander. And he says, Colonel Thompson wants to see you right now, sir. I'm like, okay. I had no idea what's going on. Grab my rifle, run about a mile to Colonel Thompson's office, knock on the door. Now, Colonel Thompson loved Ian. He was his best officer. And Colonel Thompson just got, tears rolling down his face. And he said, Carson, I need you to take command of Alpha Troop, Ian's troop. And I did not expect this at all, right? We had no idea. It wasn't even talked about. And plus, and there's nothing to say about B. There was just other people that were more in a position higher than I was, or more in line with the queue. And so, not expecting this at all. So that night, we go over to Alpha Troop, where Ian had his command post, and did a guide-on exchange with the first sergeant, and something that's a ceremony. Goes back all the way to the beginning of the creation of the Army, U.S. Army, and it's usually done on parade fields, and there's like cake afterwards, and this wasn't that. This was soldiers with tears in their eyes, and we're doing this at 2 o'clock in the morning. And so as I sit down at Ian's desk, and we're going to be up all night, and I'm thinking, what am I going to do? This is April. We've got the rest of the year, 9 more months in front. I'm going to set to fill this guy's shoes. That is the most revered leader I've ever met. And then we got 9 more months of combat, and it is hot out there. Not temperature hot. It's going to get that way, but it is. We're getting hit by IEDs, small arms fire. We're constantly doing this thing every night. What am I going to do? Thinking about the end. It's a huge. I'm in the middle of chaos right now personally. I sit down on this desk, and the first thing that's on there is this book. At the time, it was blood-soaked. Some soldier had taken it off. We all carried these little books for notes and stuff, and a soldier had taken it off his body, and I start flipping through it. Ian was an incredible note-taker, much better than I was. And he had all these notes. I flip to the end. He's got these notes on here. I start looking through them. 17 April, 18 April. He's got a checklist for 19 April, the next day. If you could see that. More Iraqi police patrols. We were in charge of the Iraqi police on Tampa. More patrols in South Texas. These are all little code names that we had for the area, for our sector. And it hit me again. It's like, he's just worried about the next day, right? I don't have to think about 9 more months. I just got to worry about the next day. That's what he was thinking about. That's his mindset. Just worry about the next day, because we are living in chaos right now. Don't get overwhelmed. So I had to go back to the battle plan. And I had to realize I had to stick to the battle plan as a leader. I had to do all those 4 things, but I also had to execute it and use me as an example for my rest of those soldiers that, hey, this is the way we're going to live our lives. This is the way we're going to do the rest of this deployment. Okay, we're going to make a routine out of this. And then as leaders, and I think this is important as men in our own homes and our own workplaces, we had to understand, had to be authentic and humble. I had to make sure that, I didn't have to have all the answers, right? And as long as my soldiers realized that I was real, okay, and we're in this fight together, then I would get their buy-in. And then I had to learn to empower and trust others, because it's what real leaders ended up doing. So I learned a lot during that period of time. So this is me trying to make peace with the sheikhs, probably unsuccessfully that day. But I learned a lot for that, and I realized that battle plan does work. So here's what I'm going to leave you with. If I put my life in these times of chaos, and I kind of reflect on that, and I'm going to put my life here at the risk of sort of exposing myself. But if I were to relate my life and time on earth and then my intimacy, my closeness with God, right? How does that look on a line graph for me? Now I'm talking about me. This may not be you. Okay, but I know me. If I were to actually be honest with myself, it's going to look something like that. Okay? When I'm born, all the way to the left, hopefully I'm pretty close. Right? All right. And then as life goes on, and I float around in life, and then there's no chaos going on. I'm just kind of thinking, I'm just kind of bopping around, and maybe I'm getting into scripture every now and then. I'm not. And I start to fade off, right? And the author of Hebrews talks about that drift that happens. We've got to fight that drift. But then what happens in that bump up, boom, my life hits chaos. I come back on my knees. God, I need you. And I'm trying to relearn the battle plan. How do I do this again? I got to trust God. He's going to give me He's going to give me the manna I need for today, maybe, right? Just for today, maybe not for tomorrow yet. But I'm going to anticipate for tomorrow, right? And I'm going to trust Him. He's going to give me that, right? And then there's this cyclical thing that happens. And then pretty soon that chaos is over, and I'm floating around again. Just everything's fine. Just kind of living life, and then just start to drift. Boom. And here he is, and I'm trying to learn it again. So here's what I'm going to submit to the group. Here's times in our lives, and if you're living in chaos right now, that's not for you. You got to get the battle plan, right? You got to stick to the battle plan. But there's times right here where you're just kind of floating, right? Maybe we can do some training during that time, right? We can train ourselves, and what I mean by training is that we can perhaps invite chaos in voluntarily. It's kind of a crazy concept. So a lot of times chaos is involuntary. It comes to our door, and we're not expecting it. We don't want it. Right? But if I do something to invite chaos in, I'm going to generate the same emotions we talked about at the beginning, but I'm going to have to go to the battle plan, right? Because I've just invited something in my life, but now, man, I don't know how I'm going to get through it, but it's going to be practice. I'm going to have to train this mentality and this trusting of God each and every day. He's going to give me the manna I need it, all right? And so I like simple mottos, so do hard stuff. And what I mean by hard stuff, be all kinds of things to invite chaos into your life. Sounds crazy, right? But maybe it's reaching out to a loved one, or being the first to reach out to try to repair a relationship, right? Maybe it's taking the first step. This is chaos, right? Maybe it's taking the first steps to overcome an addiction that we know we have. I'm going to need to trust God each and every day that I can do that, because I'm going to do that, all right? Maybe it's not so serious. Maybe it's running a marathon or it's going skydiving. Those are options, right? That's going to invite chaos in your life. Maybe it's finally attending a Mark Man weekend. Okay? Trust me, that's chaos. Okay? But it's good chaos. Okay? Maybe it's signing up for a Bible study. Maybe it's attending a missions trip that's to a country that it might scare you a little bit, right? That's chaos, but it will force you into the battle plan and it'll train you for the times when chaos comes and it wasn't invited, if you know what I mean. All right? So that's the question. Randy, we'll talk more about it in a minute. What hard stuff are you going to do tomorrow? And while you're thinking about that, I'll end with the sort of the rest of the story. So Ian is buried in Arlington. Section 60 is where many of our Afghan or GWAT heroes are buried. If you're ever at Arlington National Cemetery, certainly go to all the tourist stuff, certainly, but make a point to go to Section 60 and walk those grounds. Ian's there. That's his son back in 06, 07-ish, I suppose. Ian had a best friend, another faithful, fervent follower of Jesus named Mark Payne. And Mark was an incredible person. They were best friends all the way back to West Point, and they happened to be commanders in the same unit in 2006, which was pretty cool. When Ian died in April, Mark was obviously devastated. And Mark, was super blessed by Mark's friendship after that. And he took me under his wing and kind of taught me how to be a better commander, taught me a lot about faith, and taught me a lot. But sadly, he ended up dying in October 15th, same year. Same deal, IED. And so, just in case you ever doubt that God's in control, okay? So Section 60, you've been to Arlington, I don't know how many, I meant to look up this before I came here, but a row of Section 60, it could be 150 grave sites, I don't know, something like that. It's a long way. Right? So Ian's widow called Arlington, and she was tight with Mark as well. And so when she learned of Mark's passing, she called Arlington, thinking she had some pull. She had just buried her husband in Arlington. Said, hey, can these two guys be buried together, or at least in close proximity? And of course, it'd be awesome to think that way. But Arlington being the Arlington, that's sort of the keystone of our army, right? And so they said, no, sorry, ma'am, that's not. It's just when the body comes to Dover Air Force Base, whatever that plot is there, we just can't do that, right? And so as they were approaching Mark's gravesite, as he was going to be buried that day, sometime in October of 06, everybody came to their knees when they saw this, and it's not too clear, but Mark Payne ended up being right in front of Ian's gravestone, right? A little God wink, like, I'm in control, right? So God's crazy. We can all agree. Crazy things happen. And Mark and I actually, before he died, we actually went on our R&R, mandatory R&R, down to Texas. I visited my family, and he encouraged me to visit Ian's widow, just to bring some maps and stuff and say, hey, this is what happened and all of that. And so I did. We met. Life happens. Years later, our relationship we started a friendship, and that's a different long story. But, our relationship turned platonic, from platonic to romantic. And that little boy you saw, he's now, I adopted him when he was 5, and now that's that wrestler I was talking about at the beginning. And that's our family today. Wendy and I added 2, but that's Jonathan on the top left, and that's Wendy, of course, in the middle. So that's the rest of the story there. So anyway, that's all I have. I'm going to invite Randy up.